Hey, welcome. My name is Nick. I'm one of the pastors here on staff. We believe church should be relevant, simple, and real. I want to welcome all those watching online with us. Before we get started too much, we are starting a brand new series, How Not to Be a Jerkface. And every now and then somebody will look at me and be like, man, Nick, your video department is amazing. And I'm like, it is. It's because we steal everything we do. So anyway, I just want to say thank you. This weekend, we borrow stuff, and churches are amazing. They give us stuff. And so Crossroads Church from, I think it's Cincinnati, loaned us all this stuff. And so we're grateful to them. I want to say thank you to them. And we really are. We're starting a new series, How Not to Be a Jerkface. And as we were prepping for this, it made me think of one of the biggest jerk faces in my life. His name is Corey. Okay? So Corey is this guy that, I don't know about you, but he did something heinous and terrible to me, and I've never forgotten it. It really starts from when I was younger. I don't know about you, but I love shoes, okay? So not all of these are mine, but a good amount of them are mine. I really do. I love shoes and take that very seriously, and part of it probably has to do with when I was growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of money. Some of you can relate to that. I didn't have a lot of nice stuff. In fact, growing up, how many of you remember shoes in the 80s and 90s? Like Nike was a big deal. Nike's still there. But how many of you remember Reebok pumps? Just really quickly, how many of you are like, yeah, you just bend over, you're like, somehow that made you jump higher? I don't think it worked, really. You know how I know that? We don't have them anymore. So that's how I know that, But Reebok pumps were a big deal. British Knights were a big deal back in the day. They were cool for about 2 years, and then somehow, I don't know, people realized that's from Britain. We don't like that. And they quit buying them, So that was it. But everybody in just, middle school, high school, for me, like shoes were everything. Like the shoes that you had really determined how popular you were and whether you could be cool or not. And I never had cool shoes. Everybody was wearing Nike, Reeboks. I was wearing McGregor. Anybody remember McGregor shoes? Yeah, don't laugh at me. Who's laughing at me? It's mean. I'm being like real up here. And yeah, no, it's funny. They were ugly. Yeah, I had like McGregor shoes on and got made fun of ruthlessly. But I remember one time in the 7th grade, actually the second 7th grade, that's a different sermon. But the second time I was in 7th grade, I would go shopping with my mom. I've always loved clothes and shoes, and so that was one of the fun things that we would do. I remember one day we were out shopping, and I was so excited. I found through one of the bargain bins, I found a pair of actual, real, not knockoff Nokes, but I found some Nikes for sale. They were 75% off. They were white. They had the real swoosh. It was great. I was so excited. I was so pumped to have those, and I bought those shoes. And I was so proud to wear them into school because this was like the Nikes, and this was the time, maybe remember they still got some of those. It had like the air bubble in the back. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like some of you, yeah. It's a big deal. Like if you had the air bubble, like that is, I got the Nikes with the air bubble. And I loved those shoes for about 2 days. And then Corey. I will not say his last name, but you know who you are. So anyway, just kidding. Corey, I remember I was standing in the lunch line to get lunch because that's what they make you to do. I think just to make you angry. I don't know what that is, but they're like, yeah, let's let everybody have lunch at the same time. Line everybody up in a long gym hallway, and I was standing there, and all of a sudden I heard tss, and Corey had taken a needle, a pen, and I about cried that day. It like broke my heart because this thing that was such a big deal to me and I was so excited about and I was so glad. I was like, yes, I can finally be one of the cool kids. I can finally kind of be there. This is going to be an awesome moment for me. It lasted a total of 2 days for me and they were ruined. It really didn't affect my jump that much because I can't jump at all because I'm white, okay? But anyway, like my athletic abilities were not affected, but the shoes were ruined and it was terrible. And I'm 40, I still remember Corey. And what I know is this, Corey, in my mind, forever, is a jerk face. He is a complete jerk face. And what I know about you is you have a Corey, don't you? If his name's really Corey, let's get together, we'll see if it's the same guy, and we'll get him, okay? So, but for the most part, it's probably not a real Corey, but you've got some Corys. You've got some people in your life that have done things to you, that have said things about you, that have taken things from you, and you would say, you know what? They're a jerk face. And it was so frustrating because I remember thinking as I grew up, man, I'm a pretty good kid. I'm a pretty good kid. I was raised in the church, and I love the church, and I got saved when I was 6 years old, and for the most part, I'm pretty plain Jane vanilla, And I remember thinking I'm a good kid. And I remember thinking, man, I'm not a jerk face, and that all came crashing down. I'll tell you, there's something that will reveal how big of a jerk face you are. Anybody know what that is? Kids, okay? When you have kids, it will reveal how big of a jerk face you are. I don't know what it is about kids, but I remember, I was married, and my wife and I'm like, man, I'm an amazing husband. This is awesome. I'm great. I'm not a jerk face. We had kids, and I will tell you the first moment I realized, man, you know what? Secretly, deep down, I'm a jerk face. I'm going to share 2 stories with you here because, again, our core values are relevant, simple, and real, and I'm going to be very transparent with you. I'm going to let you in on a secret here. I confessed this to my wife last night. I think she wanted to punch me in the face, okay? But I'm going to be raw and real with you here really quickly. There was a moment where we had our first kid, Nicholas, and my wife, let's be honest, women go through all the problems with childbearing. Okay, let's be honest, okay? So of the 2 of us, I owe her big time, and we had been there for a little bit, and guys, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't leave me here hanging. You've all done it, and if you haven't, just lie and be with me here for a second. But there's a moment when you have children, and you're in bed. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you hear the baby cry, and you have to make a decision. Do I get up, take care of the kid, and feed him and change him? Or do I just pretend that I can't hear it and I'm still sleeping? What do I do with that? And I am here to tell you, I'm not proud of it. I am a jerk face. On more than one occasion, I'd be like, oh, honey, that's the craziest thing. Oh, he cried last night? Oh, I didn't hear a darn thing. That was the craziest thing. I'm a heavy sleeper. That's what it was. I'm a complete jerk face. I realized that with kids. A little bit later, when you had kids, okay, there's this thing, and as a dad, you don't babysit your kids because they're your kids, okay? So you're not babysitting. But I would watch my kids, and my wife would leave, and the second thing that realized, and there's multiple, there's more than these 2. In fact, I had a friend of mine who literally texted me in between services. He's a big encouragement to me. He said, Nick, I knew that you were a big jerk face way before you ever had kids, just so you know. I'm like, oh, thank you, that's great. But the other one that happened to me was I was sitting, and I'm pretty sure I was playing a video game or something because that's what adults do. So I was playing a video game or something, being super productive in my home, and again, everybody has had this moment where you're here and you're focused, but there is a sense, there is something that comes out of nowhere, and it is a smell that hits you like a ton of bricks, okay? If you've had kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is not worldly, it is otherworldly, and it is terrible. And what you should do, what a good parent does, what a godly, I love Jesus, I love my wife, husband, parent does, is that person goes, oh, I should change the diaper. I am a jerk face, okay? Because what I would do every now and then, and come on, don't leave me hanging. I know I cannot be the only person that's done this. Every now and then I would look and my wife's gone and I would check and I would evaluate what time it is and what time she's going to be home, and I would do a mathematical equation in my head that says, listen, I think they can survive. I don't think they're going to pass out, okay? They got 15 minutes, she's going to be home. Yep, we're just going to pretend I don't smell that. And she gets home oh, I think you might need to be changed. Oh, okay, cool. So, but it's in those moments. I'm a jerk face. And it's not just with kids. Come on, let's be honest. You're a jerk face too. Welcome to River Lake Church. We're all jerk faces. How many of you really, come on, let's be honest, if you drive, how many of you, if you're driving and you're in the left-hand lane or you're the right-hand lane, and there's plenty of distance between you and the car in front of you, but you notice the car next to you is creeping in front of you, and you're looking ahead, and you know in your heart of hearts, that they want to merge in front of you. What do? Speed up. No, this is church. No, what is wrong with you? No. Yeah, that's what you do. You totally, that's what I do. I'm no. I'm literally there was a moment where I started to do that, and Lisa looks at me and she goes, are you in a hurry? And I'm no, why? She's slow down. I'm no, they will not. Why? Because at the core of it, I'm a jerk face. I have so many things that if I'm being really, really honest in my world that I do on a daily basis. And the reality is all of us, I'm not trying to be insulting, but the reality is if I spend a day with you, I could pinpoint, I could pick up your heart, I could pick up things you do, sarcastic things you say. kind of passive-aggressive things you put on Facebook or things that you text message people or ways that you cut people off or okay, we're all a jerk face. Every single one of us. And today, as we start this series, how not to be a jerk face, what I want to talk about and where I want to go is at the end of the day, before we start talking about our community, before we start talking about our politics, because isn't it easy to sit back and talk about them? Isn't it easy to talk about, oh, my spouse or my kids or those people at the school or those people in Hollywood or those people in Washington, those people over there? Isn't it so easy to talk about how everybody else is a jerk face and woe is me and the pity party? At the end of the day, what I feel like we need to do for us to see real change in our world is to start with us. And so today I want to talk about how do we not be a jerk face? What does it look like for us as individuals, for us as people who would say, listen, I don't even know if I believe in God, but what does it look like for me to be a better person? Most people want to do that, but there is a problem. There is something that happens. There is a subtle shift that happens that I think stands in the way of every single one of us becoming who God called us to be. And that is what we do wrong. See, I grew up in a church. And maybe they said different things. I don't know, and maybe it was just, I wasn't ready to hear it, because I'll be honest, there's a lot of things that were said in church that I probably didn't hear because I wasn't paying attention, okay? I was that kid. But I grew up in a church, and maybe you grew up in a church where I thought that what I heard was, listen, don't do that, 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 don't do that. Anybody go to that church? Nope, just me? Awesome. Okay, cool. No, that's fine. No, put your hands down now. It's way too late. Okay. No. I grew up in that church where it was a whole bunch of thou shalt nots. Don't kill, don't murder, don't sleep with that person, don't drink that, don't eat that, don't go there, don't say that, don't hang out with them, don't do. And at the end of the day, what I learned about God or what was taught to me about God is, listen, if I can just follow the don'ts, then I'm a good person. That at the end of the day, my relationship with God and my relationship with the world and the earth and the relationship that I'm in really only stand upon, only are held accountable by what I don't do. And so my world became all about don't do this, 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 don't do this. But come on, let's just be honest, come on. You know, what you don't do doesn't make you good, does it? That you can have somebody with all the power and all the influence and all the money and all the ability and all the intelligence and all the whatever, and if they have all that potential and all that influence, all that stuff, and they just sit in a room and they don't do anything wrong, nobody looks at that person and says, man, they're so good. And yet I grew up in a world where I felt like God was only interested in what I shouldn't do and not so much interested in what I should do. And we're going to look at a passage today because I believe that's at the core of it. In fact, I want to say it like this. We're going to put our big thought up here. We're going to go past that. At the end of the day, we as a culture, we need to move past just doing and following the rules. We have to stop just following the rules and start doing what's right. That the shift that needs to be happening in our culture, in churches, whatever, it's don't do this and don't do this and don't do this and don't go there and don't look at that and don't eat that and don't hang out with them. It's a whole bunch of rules. But listen, if we only live our lives with a bunch of don'ts, we never walk into the destiny of what we're called to do. And today I want to unpack just one verse. Really, that's all we're going to look at is really one verse. One verse together, I think just kind of changes everything. It's from a guy named James. He's the brother of Jesus. I don't know what it would take for you to convince your brother or your sister that you're God, okay? But James did that, all right? And so James writes this book, and it's a letter. We call it a book, but it's actually a letter, and he writes this. And in this letter that he writes, he has all these applicable practical things. Listen, make sure you watch your tongue and, make sure you have big faith and believe. And he walks through how you handle your money and how you handle your time and just your relationships and your judgment and all this kind of very practical things like that. It's an incredibly practical book. If you don't know what you should do, if you're kind of confused in what's next for you, I would encourage you, pick up the book of James. It's an incredibly practical, applicable book. But Chapter 4, he starts to wrap it up. Chapter 4, he starts to turn the page. There's only one more chapter left. And the very, very last verse, he says this. If anyone means everyone. Anyone means that you are not exempt. If anyone, I mean, he's talking to everybody. If anyone then knows the good, to which, if I'm a reader, I'm going, whoa, no. I'm supposed to know the bad. What do you mean the good? I'm supposed to know the bad. What do you mean? He says, listen, if anyone knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, then it gets even more confusing. Matter of fact, if you were reading this, I bet this kind of messed with you in ways that you didn't, because listen, especially as a Jewish young boy or girl, you grew up and you had all the rules. Matter of fact, there were 633 rules, and you followed all the rules, and what your goal was to follow the rules. And James kind of jacks and messes this whole thing up. He says, if anyone knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. To which, as a reader, you go, whoa, time out. What do you mean sin for me? There's right and there's wrong. There's good and there's bad. There's what everybody should do and what nobody should do. What do you mean there's sin for me? And James, if he was here, I think he'd look at us and go, no, you don't understand. Yeah, there's a common foundation. There's some like rules like don't. But you're unique. You have unique struggles, don't you? That maybe some other people struggle with, but not everybody struggles with. You have some unique struggles. You have some unique strengths. You're blessed with certain things. Maybe you're really, really smart, or maybe you're financially blessed, or maybe you're athletic, or maybe you're just relational, like people like you, or you're just really good at your job. I don't know what it is, but you have unique strengths, like God's blessed you in some way. And then at the end of the day, you have unique circumstances and situations. James would write. James would tell us, I think, if he's here. No. What makes you good is not what you don't do. That's what keeps you from being bad. But if you want to be good, then you have a unique future in front of you. And you will have moments, and this has had to be so different. He says, you will have moments where you will, and here's the key word, know the good you ought to do. We call them feelings. I call them moments. I don't know what you call them, but here's what I know. You'd be here today, and you don't have to believe in God, and you've had those moments, right? You don't have to be like, I don't have to believe in God to come to the conclusion, you know what, listen, I can't explain it. There's not a law for it. There's not a rule in the Bible for it, but man, I just have a feeling I should do something. I have a feeling I should give money to that person. I have a feeling I should apologize. I have a feeling that I should go there and hang out with them. I have a feeling that I should text that person and just kind of ask them how to do it. There's no rules. There's no verses for that. There's nothing. And you would describe it as a feeling. You would describe it as like, listen, I'm not even quite sure what it is. James would say, listen, no, that's not just a feeling. He would say, that's God. That's the Holy Spirit speaking to you. He says, and in those moments, it's way more at stake than you ever thought. Because I grew up, probably like many of you grew up, that listen, if you don't do the wrong things, then you're a good person. And James would say, no, you don't understand. There will be moments where you are tempted and you are suggested and you have a feeling to do good, and you will know what you should do. It's in those moments that you will decide whether it's sin. That what is sin for you is not sin for me. What is sin for me is not sin for you, which gets it really squishy and really weird and really ambiguous, doesn't it? Because, man, I love lines. I love thou shalt not. Those are clear because it's really clear, like I did it or I didn't, and it's for everybody. But James says, man, your relationship with God is so much more complex than that. It's so much different than that, and it's so much more than that. It says, in the moment, you and me and all of us, we will have moments where we feel like we're supposed to do something good. And in those moments, your ability to execute on faith is either sin or not sin. And it's complicated, isn't it? Because how do you know what's from God? That's the struggle. I had a birthday a few weeks ago, and I bought something for myself, because that's what you do when you're old, okay? Like you just get that, and like my wife's like, here, buy what you want. So, I bought something, and I struggled with it. I struggled with whether I should have bought it or not. I bought it and took it home. I was excited. I unwrapped it. I'm like, man, this is incredible. And I got to tell you, for 2 straight weeks, I struggled with whether I should have bought. Matter of fact, I struggled 3 days in. I just felt like God said, Nick, take it back. And I'm like, no. P.S., probably not the best answer to God. So just on a side note, but I was like, no, I want that. I got the money. It's not a problem. There's nothing morally wrong with that. I mean, at the end of the day, I bought it from Lowe's, okay? let's be honest. Jesus was a carpenter. Lowe's caters to carpenters. It was biblical. That's how I justified it at least, okay? Like that was my moment. I was like, man, I'm trying to be more like you, Jesus. Let's go to Lowe's. All the men said, Amen. Yeah, that's just like Jesus. Okay, yeah. Love Lowe's. I struggled for 2 weeks. I would love to stand up here on the stage and tell you, you know what, man, I was in that moment. I was praying and felt like God convicted me. I was like, yes, Jesus, I don't understand it, but I'm going to follow you. I'm going to have faith. Take it right back. Take it right back. I didn't. I struggled with it. I struggled with because it didn't make sense to me. It didn't line up with my theology. And can we be honest? There's no rules for that. There's no Bible verses for that. There's no laws for that. Matter of fact, it lined up with everything, and I deserved it. At least in my mind, I deserved it, and I wanted it, and just whole deal. And I don't have a reason why I should, but it took me 2 weeks to come to the conclusion, I'm going to wrap it up and take it back. I don't get it all. But the struggle that I had is the struggle that you have. That if we're to take this verse seriously, if we're to take that, you know what? There's a different level. There's a different standard with which we're called to live by. That it's not enough to not do bad, that we're called to do good. And it's fluid and it's different. And it comes from feelings. All of a sudden, it raises the stakes in those moments, doesn't it? All of a sudden, when you're in your household and you feel like, you know what, I probably should make the bed. And you don't want to. Telling you, seems silly. There's way more at stake than you realize. In those moments where you feel like God says, listen, I want you to go apologize to them, or I want you to go talk to them and share your faith with them. And you sit back and you want to kind of go back on, there's no rule for that. There's no verse for that. There's way more at stake than you realize. There's way more at stake in our moments than what we want them to be. That we have to, can we put that line back up again? We have to move past. We have to go past. We have to stop just following the rules and start doing what's right. James would write. James would tell us because he were here. It's not enough to avoid doing wrong. You want to follow God? You need to do right. And the way that you do that is God speaking through our hearts, through our minds, through feelings. But as I said, that's struggle, isn't it? Because it took me 2 weeks to figure out. It took me 2 weeks of struggling to figure out, finally come to a conclusion. You know what? For whatever reason, I still don't get it. I needed to take that back. So here's what I want to do for the remainder of our time. I want to give you 3 filters for your feelings. I want to give you 3 filters to kind of unpack this. When you have a moment and you're kind of like, man, I feel like I should do this. I feel like this is a good thing. I want to give you 3 filters to kind of help you make the right decisions, because you can't fall back on a rule, can you? You can't call up your pastor. You can't call up your small group leader. You can't call up somebody else and go like, hey, what do you think? Because can we just be honest? 99% of the decisions that we make every single day fit in between. That's clearly wrong and that's clearly right. So what do you do? I want to give you 3 filters with that. Number 1 is this. God will never ask you to break what he's already breathed. It says in the scripture that God breathed and his word became flesh, and that everything was written as God breathed, that the scripture is the priority. And he breathed it. Like that's what we can bank on. But for all of us, as we sit back and we kind of discern, man, I got a feeling, I feel like I should do something. I feel like I should go somewhere. I feel like I should give some money or serve somebody or love somebody or whatever that is. The very first filter that we need to run it through is, did God already speak about it? Because every now and then somebody will walk into me and they'll say something like, Nick, I've been praying and I love God. And I just feel like, man, I'm supposed to move in with my girlfriend. I'm like, wrong answer. No. You don't need to pray about that. You know why? God spoke about it. There's already a foundation of thou shalt nots that would break. And listen, you might have a feeling, but that's not the right feeling. That's a God feeling. I know how you feel. That's a very, very different feeling for you wanting to move in with your girlfriend. No, wrong feeling. No, you don't do that. That God will never, at the end of the day, God will never ask you to break what he's already breathed. And as you walk through the day, as you walk through your relationships and things like that, man, every now and then somebody look at me, Nick, God wants me to be happy. I feel like I'm supposed to leave my spouse. No. I don't care how you feel. That's not what he breathed. That's not the right thing. Every now and then somebody look at me and can we just be honest, that like we are so tempted to lie, right? And none of us, I mean, if I said, hey, who's a liar? Nobody raised their hand. Which would be a lie. But anyway, that's a different song. But we're so tempted to lie, right? Especially when we can justify it and we go, oh, listen, I know I probably shouldn't have lied to her, but it would have hurt her feelings. She asked if she gained weight. I'm not answering that. That's funny, dang it, okay? Anyway. But it's a struggle, isn't it? It's a struggle. I couldn't tell him the truth right now. Are you kidding me? We'd crush him. It would hurt him. Listen, I know I probably shouldn't, but hey, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna download that jailbroken Fire Stick, and it doesn't hurt anybody. It's not a big deal, and I'm not really stealing from anybody else, but I'm gonna go ahead and use that, and I'm gonna steal from that. And you know what? I prayed about it. It's actually saving our family money because we got to get out of debt, and we're actually giving some money to the church, and so it's really okay. Actually, God's getting ahead with that. It's theft. God will never ask you to break what He's already breathed, ever. And so as you walk through the day, as you walk through the week, listen, there's way more at stake than you believe. There's way more at stake than you realize. But as you start to evaluate, man, is this a God thing? Is this really God moving me? Or is this a selfish thing? Is this a Satan thing? Is this I had pizza last night and a weird dream combo thing? Like, where on the spectrum is this whole thing at? You just need to understand the very first filter. God will never ask you to break what He's already breathed. The second one is this. If it's a good thing and I don't want to do it, it's probably a God thing. All right? Here's the deal. I wrote this down probably about 12 years ago as I was struggling through some stuff. Because as I said, listen, I'm a complete jerk face. I have moments where I buy things I probably shouldn't have bought, say things I probably shouldn't have bought, and I've talked before, I can talk myself into anything. If there is a TV on sale, that is like my kryptonite, okay? If you're like 50% off, I'm like mine, okay? Dibs. How much is it, honey? I don't know, but I got it. It's mine right there. I don't just, like that is like my kryptonite right there. I can convince myself, honey, it's God. Are you sure? It's half off. We don't have any money. He provides. Jeez. Like 24 months free. See, He provided. No, He didn't. No. Okay? Come on. You do the same thing, right? And if you can get to the point where you're listen, what I feel like God's calling me to do doesn't break the foundation of what God's already said, then the second filter that you need to walk through is, listen, is it a good thing? And do I want to do it? Because I can talk myself into anything. And when it comes to buying a TV, listen, I'm not sure it's a good thing, and I darn well know I want to do it, okay? So it breaks both of these filters. But you will have things, you will be prompted, you will be tempted in your heart to sit back and go, man, I probably should do that. I probably should apologize to that person. I probably should confess that sin to somebody. It's deep and it's dark and no one knows. And it's an addiction, it's a struggle. It's an issue that I've had for years. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's a good thing. And I don't want to do it. So it must be a God thing. You know how I came up with this? Because I realized something one day. I was praying through something, and I was struggling. I was praying through it, going, God, what do you want me to do with this issue that I'm walking through? And I kept asking for God to give me a clear answer, and God to make it clear, and God to give me a sign, and God to do the whole thing. And I just felt like God wanted to have a different conversation with me one day. And so all of a sudden, God asked me, He says, Nick, where do you think this idea came from? I started processing. That's a weird question. God, I just want a sign. Just give me the sign. I felt like God started pushing me, going, Nick, do you think Satan wants you to do that? I'm like, no, because it's a good thing. I've realized in my walk with God that really I believe that we have an enemy. It's a spiritual warfare, and that you have an enemy, and he is out there, and he will put thoughts and ideas in your head, and they are not good things. So when you're tempted to apologize to your spouse, and all of a sudden you're like, or I could yell, throw, be a baby, walk out, those are all bad things. I just felt like God saying, Nick, do you really think that the enemy's going to encourage you to do a good thing? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I was like, okay, well, that thing that you're convicted about probably is not from me. Second grid was, Nick, do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That terrifies me. In no way do I want to do that. Felt like I said, okay, so let's cover this. It's not from the enemy. The enemy didn't put the thought in your head. And it's not from you because you don't want to do it. What's that leave? Me. See, I'm just telling you. You have things that you're wrestling with right now. You have good things. You have things in your head. Maybe some of you right now, like I'm talking, and there is something in the back of your head that you feel like you should be doing. You need to take a next step. You need to apologize. You need to give or serve or love somebody or just, I don't know what it is, but you have something, and as I'm talking, you're arguing right now with yourself. And just listen. If it doesn't break God's command, the second question you got to ask is it a good thing? And if you don't want to do it, it's probably, it's not 100%. Like that's not the only grid you have. But there's a really good chance that you're not going to prompt yourself to do something that you don't want to do, and Satan's not going to prompt you to do something that's good. So if it fits those two filters, you're probably on the right case. But that's not enough. There's one more filter you need, and it's this. This one's huge. Matter of fact, I wish I had more time because I could unpack this one, and this could be a whole message. This is maybe one of the most confusing things, and this is where it gets even more squishy and ambiguous and weird and complicated. But what's right today may be wrong tomorrow. Man, missed opportunities happen all the time. Missed moments where this day God may be putting something on your heart to go do, to go give, to go bless somebody, to go apologize. I don't know what it is, but today's right many, many times is tomorrow's wrong. And that's hard to understand. That's hard to kind of do. Because again, we want to live in the black and white universal. If he said it once, he said it for all time. But that's not really how God works. That your opportunity has an expiration date. And it's hard. And you're going to struggle with it. And you're going to lie to yourself and say, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I'll do whatever. But God, could you fix it? Could you make it less problematic? Could you do it? Whatever. But as you read in the Old Testament, there's a story. If you've read the Bible, you probably know it about the Israelites. And it's this fascinating story that I believe, as I say it all the time, that their story is our story in so many different ways, and it's the story of this nation and this people that come out of slavery. And they're on the edge and the ledge of what God's promised them, this promised land, but they have to do something. They have to do something there's not a verse for, there's not a rule for, there's not a law for. It feels like it's not morally wrong or right, and if they don't do it, they haven't morally done any harm to God, and yet, as we read beforehand, as we see, as we look back, also, it was sin for them. God says, listen, I want you to go into the land, and I want you to take it. And they say, no. Look at God and go, no, they're big, they're scary, they're intimidating, they got better weapons, better positions. See, at the end of the day, everybody, I believe, wants an extraordinary life, but the problem is most of us don't want to walk through extraordinary circumstances. And the struggle is, right now, some of you, you're waiting for God to fix the circumstances before you walk into and through the struggle. But God's telling you to go today, and you're saying, and you're lying to yourself and everybody else around you, or maybe it's just in your own head, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next month. I'll do it next year. I'll go back to school later. I'll apologize next Sunday. I'll start eating healthier next week. I just got to get through today. I'll start giving, next month when I get some more money. If you just knew my financial situation, I'll start doing something later. I'll do it later. It's a lie. Nation of Israel looked at God and said, nope. And then what'd they do? If you know the story, it's fascinating to me. See what was right for them that day? They get convicted. They realize they messed up. They're like, oh, God, we're sorry. We're going to go back. No, listen, we're going to go back tomorrow, and we're going to go take them out, and we're going to do what you want us to do. Listen, it's going to be okay. And God's like, no, you blew it. You had an opportunity. There's way more at stake. There's a time limit. And they're like, no, we don't. Listen, there's not a time limit. We know you're God, but there's not a time limit. We're going to do it tomorrow. So what do? You read the story. They go up to the nation. They go into battle, and they get routed. They get wiped out. There's a loss of life because they're the wrong filters. They felt like they were supposed to do something, and it had a time limit on it. It was today. They said, no, we'll do it tomorrow. You just need to understand, for some of them, not all of them, but for some of them, what's right today may be wrong tomorrow. I see this all the time in counseling. Again, I wish I could unpack this a whole lot more, but I see people who come to me and go, Nick, I felt like I was supposed to apologize and confess something to my spouse years ago. And I didn't. But I did it today. It's too late. They're gone. I was supposed to marry somebody. I was supposed to ask them to marry me because we were living in a bad relationship. We were in an unhealthy relationship. We were in a sexual relationship, and I was supposed to marry them and do that, but I was scared, and I said, no. But now I'm ready. Let's go. It's gone. I was supposed to apply for a job or take a step of faith and start that business, start that momentum, start walking into what God's got me to do. And that was 2 years ago. I was supposed to quit my job and do something crazy. And yeah, it financially didn't look like it would work. And yeah, it financially just didn't make any sense. And I couldn't make sense of it. And so I just kind of retreated back into my logic, retreated back into what made sense to me. I kind of walked away. But now I'm ready. Let's go. God, come on. You take that step of faith. You end up like the nation of Israel. Routed. I don't know what it is for you. I don't know what your next step is. I just know that, listen, it's not going to be super clear. It's not going to be found in the pages of the Bible. What you shouldn't do absolutely will. And there's obviously some stuff you should do. The foundation for our faith is found there. But you have unique situations, struggles, and strengths. And every single day, I believe, there is a spirit that is speaking to you, telling you the good that you need to do with your life. And you get to make a decision. What do I do with it? As we start to wrap it up, I've thought all week about what do I do? Because this is such a unique thing, isn't it? It's such a crazy, random thing. And because of the uniqueness of your life and my life, it's hard to give you clear next steps. We work really hard giving you clear next steps. And I really could only come up with 3 that may or may not fit you. And they really have to do with our church. And I believe that you'll have different ones, but I believe that there's 3 that have to do with our church. And number 1 is this, small groups. Man, we have small group signups today. I say it all the time. Life change happens in circles. You will grow intellectually, I believe, sitting in rows. Hopefully, we work really hard at the messages and want you to grow in your walk with God, want you to grow in how much you know about the Bible or whatever. But listen, there is power. There is something unique about sitting in circles where they're praying for you, holding you accountable, text message you get to learn about their kids and their walk and everything like that. It's very personal. Listen, you can't substitute small groups. You just can't. Small groups are so powerful in our walk with God. And for some of you, not all of you, you felt like, man, I probably should sign up for a small group. They got small groups. I probably should join one. Or maybe you're here today and you just feel it. Again, it's not a verse for it. I don't have a law for it. It's between you. It's fluid. It's you. But you can't deny, man, I just feel like we should. I feel like I need to sign up. I'm just telling you right now, don't lie to yourself. If that's not how you feel, ignore this. But for some of you that's how you feel, it's way more at stake than you realize. I want to speak to some of you guys really quickly. Because I'm going to tell you, men reject small groups more than women, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's because they think we just sit around and share our feelings and sing Kumbaya. We don't, I promise, okay? But some of you guys, you just need to step up and be like, hey, and own it. I need a small group of men who are going to hold me accountable, who are going to check in on me, who are going to walk with me, pray with me, I can be honest with and transparent with. I need that. For some of you here today, that's your next step, and you have no clue. And listen, don't lie to yourself and say, I'll do it next time. Don't lie to yourself and say, I'll do it tomorrow. No. Today, you need, as you walk out, there's some booths out there. You need to walk out there, find the one that fits you, and do it. For some, it's serving. You need to serve. Like it's a good thing, and you don't want to do it. You're like, no, I'm busy. It's serving. You just need to step up. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but right after this service, in the next 15 minutes, we're going to have first steps. You just stay right in your seat. You don't have to leave. You stay right in your seat, and you just learn about small groups, and not small groups, first steps, what it looks like to serve. Some of you need to do that, and you've been fighting it. You've been pushing back. You've been arguing with it. I'm telling you, it's not for everybody. Not everybody here. That's your next step. But for some people in here right now, as I'm talking, like, no, it's real. If I'm being honest, I feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. The last is giving. Man, you want to empty a room? Talk about money. We talk about money all the time. You know why? It says at the end of the day, God writes it over and over and over again and says, listen, you know the chief thing for your heart is money. It's not your addiction. It's not your struggle. It's not your things. It's your stuff. That is your biggest thing for your heart. And all I want to say about money is I don't want you to give more. That's not it at all. You give whatever God leads you. But can I push some of you real quickly here? Because there's a temptation to come in and you tip God and you give him $5, you give him $10, you give whatever, and you've been giving that forever or whatever that is, and you've never once paused to ask God, what do you want me to give? I just tell you, it may be less. I've heard stories of people say, Nick, I felt so much guilt and shame in my life. I've been trying to buy God, and I was really praying through it, and I felt like God said, no, you just stop. Give a little bit less. So this isn't to say give more. I'm just telling you, are you bold enough in your walk with God to sit back and go, listen, I don't want to just follow rules. God, what do you want me to give? And be faithful in that. Because the moment you get that number, I promise you, you'll run back to all the, well, there's not a verse, and I'll do it next month, and I don't know if I have to, and maybe I ate some weird pizza last night, and you come up with all the excuses why not. I'll do it next month, or I'll do it when we get out of debt, or I'll do it when the credit card clears, or da-da-da-da. God wants me to be happy, whole deal. Just telling you. It's the next step for all of you. I want to wrap it up with this verse right here. Proverbs 3. I love Proverbs 3. It has so much wisdom in it, and it starts to wrap up with this. It says, do not withhold here's the key word we've been talking about today, good from those with whom it's due, when it's in your power to act. That's such a great verse. Do not withhold, meaning you're in position like nobody else is in position. Some of you, you're a boss and you have employees and you have power. Or you're a spouse and you have, and power might be the wrong word, but influence over your spouse. Or you have kids and you have power. You have friends and you have influence and power over them. It says, listen, every one of them, there is good that is due. You owe it to them. To be the best version of you, you owe it to your employees. To be the best version of you, you owe it to your kids. To step into what their destiny is and step into what you're called to do, you owe it. It is what is due, and you have power to act. So here's what's at stake. Here's what I want to do. Man, we are a church that gives away generously. Matter of fact, some of you may have heard stories. Last year alone, we gave over $50,000 away to the community because we just love the city. We just believe the best is yet to come, and we want to invest constantly and give it away. And I had a friend of mine ask me a few months ago. We were walking through it, and we were talking about money situations and buildings, and he kind of made some sarcastic comment. He says, now that you got some real bills, are you still going to be so generous? Because it's one thing when it's like, we're playing around and just got, a whole deal. It's different when you got a bill and you got bills and you got a whole deal. I said, man, if it's up to me, we're going to go nuts. Because that's who we are. And I refuse to back down and back away from who we are. So we're starting something new today. We're starting something new that you have control. You have power to influence what we do. As you walk out and maybe you saw some coming in, you're going to get a card, and you can grab multiple cards. They're going to look like this. They're going to have an ugly, yellow, red bear on one side. And the opposite side reads this. You just helped get a kid a brand new pair of shoes. Find out how at shoesforglasgow.com. Because what we're doing is this. I want to partner with you. I believe you have power. I believe you have influence. But I want to encourage you. I want to motivate you to follow God, to be who you're called to be, to do that. And our extra motivation is this. Here's what we're going to be doing. I want you, as God prompts you, to kind of do good, to be good, to relieve ridiculous tips for your waitress. Just drop $100. To sit back if you're a teenager or whatever, and you've got a neighbor who's maybe older or whatever. Maybe you don't have $100 to drop, but you've got time and to go rake their leaves or mow their lawns. I don't know what it is. I want it to be big, but I want you to do it. Because it's not enough to just follow the rules. We've got to transition to doing what's right. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to do it. I want you to leave them a card. And then I want you to let us know. You can email us at info@riverlakechurch.com, or you can email us at our brand new email address, jerkface@riverlakechurch.com. It's awesome. Be careful what you email there. But anyway, let us know. And here's our partnership. Here's our promise to you. Every legitimate, God-sized, wow, that was a big step story we get, we're going to buy a brand new pair of shoes for a kid in middle school or high school. Every single time. It's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited about that. We've got a deal worked out where we can do that because we want to impact the city. Because at the end of the day, come on, let's be honest, You know what it's like to wear shoes in middle school and high school, right? You know the importance of that. And here's what hit us. This isn't for everybody, it's just for us. That every church shouldn't do this. In fact, we wanted to do it for little kids, but we found out somebody's already covering little kids. And we're like, okay, cool, what's next? We'll just take whatever's in our path. We'll take whatever's going on. And so we got shoes up here. And you've got shoes, and I've been wearing these nasty, ugly shoes that, thank goodness, no one commented on. Have been driving me nuts all morning. Because shoes are a big deal to kids. And we want to do what we can do. And we can't change everything, and we can't fix everything, and we can't do everything we want to do, but we're going to do our part because God has put us in position, and we have the power. So this week, over the next several weeks, actually, this whole series, we're going to be taking stories. Would you partner with us? Would you start to pray? Would you start to ask God, what do you want me to do? What does it look like? What good thing, what great thing do you want me to do? And then don't brag on Facebook. Don't do anything like that. Just send us an email saying, hey, here's what I did. Here's how God's using me. Here's what's going on. Would you stand with me? At the end of the day, here's what we need to do. Here's my hope. Here's my prayer for our church. That I believe the reason that many people view the church as a bunch of jerk faces, and we have that culture right now, that they don't look at the church with hope and as an irresistible entity. They look at it and go, yeah, they're a bunch of judgmental jerk faces. You know why I believe that? Because at the end of the day, somewhere along the line, the church settled. The church compromised for just following the rules. We, the church, we want to always do what's right. So this week, go with boldness and confidence that you are following God. And in those moments where you just feel something, use the filters. Does it break what God's breathed? It's a big one. Is it a good thing? And I don't want to do it because if it is, it's probably a God thing. And at the end of the day, for all of us, we need to walk into what is next, what we're called to do. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for your grace, your mercy. Help us change this city. Help us honor you. Help us provide shoes that seem silly and simple, but makes a big deal. Help us do good and to be good, to be the church for this city, to be what the city needs us to be, no more, no less, to always be reaching for more. Love you and thank you so much for this opportunity. Amen. Hey, we have a great series come up. I hope you come back next week as we continue our series, How Not to Be a Jerk Face. God bless.
Unstoppable God, let your glory go on.